Welcome everybody to another episode of Fantasy News. It's gonna be flowing, but first I have an update to a development from last week's Fantasy News. As you may be aware, over the last few weeks, there's been a habit of Sanderson releasing content at about, not to exaggerate, 8:59 a.m. before Fantasy News is supposed to launch on Tuesday. And I've made a bit of a meme about it, just being like, oh, ha ha ha. It kind of feels like he's personally attacking me. And it was supposed to be a joke. But on last week's video, at about, I want to say 2 or 3 in the morning, I got a notification on my phone that there was a comment from the Sander man himself, to which it said this in response to my pinned comment.
So you have chosen death.
I feel so validated, 1, and 2, immediately this means war. But what I bet Sanderson wasn't aware of is that I have a lackey who's currently able to access powerful people within the fantasy space. And I was able to get some input on this situation from the one individual, the one person in the whole speculative fiction sphere I know Sanderson fears. So now we're gonna cut over to Worldcon. Jackson, take it away.
Joe.
Yes.
Each week on either Monday night or very early Tuesday morning, Brandon Sanderson is dropping major announcements.
Yep.
Which results in our poor friend Daniel having to stay up late or even delay Fantasy News for a few minutes just so that he can cover the story. Are you Team Brandon and think that he's totally justified to announce his own news whenever he wants to? Or are you Team Daniel and think that an author of Sanderson's status should be more considerate of the very professional news industry here on YouTube?
It's a very tough one to answer. I'm trying to think where my best chance is. What's in it for me is usually the first thing I think whenever answering a question like this.
Yeah.
So I am gonna go with Daniel. How dare Brandon Sanderson,
dare he?
whoever that is,
Whoever he is.
whoever that is,
That little indie author that...
disrupt the flow of news to the people, to the readers. They're who really count. You can't set yourself up above them. That would be my attitude.
Thank you, Joe.
No problem.
We appreciate having an expert like you here on the scene.
Obviously, if Brandon should want to discuss it, then I have another set of opinions for him.
So you paid him? He's not gonna come out and say that he actually thinks that this is stupid and it's funny, because that's what he told me originally on the phone. Oh, yes, and so that is the end. Victory, I'm declaring it now. And as Sanderson concedes defeats, I just ask he releases stuff 4 hours earlier in the day. Also, fun fact, there's an issue going on with Joe Abercrombie right now that I don't even know if he is aware of. Currently, he's credited for writing the Borderlands movie on IMDb, which he didn't, and I would get that removed from your resume ASAP, just for no particular reason. It's such a weird, it does say director Eli Roth, writers Joe Abercrombie. You click it, it takes you to Joe Abercrombie's page. This was in fact written by Joe Crombie, not, this is important, Joe Abercrombie. But this takes us into the actual fantasy news for the week, starting with, of course, some good old bookie cover reveals. And we're gonna go ahead and be starting that off with a cover reveal from Makana Yamamoto for Hammajang Luck. 8 misfits, 2 execs, 1 last heist. And this came with the announcement, so incredibly pleased to share the UK cover for my debut novel, Hammajang Luck, illustrated by Jordan Wolfe and designed by Rachel Lancaster. Hawaiian cacao with a slick sci-fi twist. I can't think of a better representation of my Mahu heist crew. Hitting shelves December 12th. This is hitting quite a few boxes for me on premise. 1, love me a good old heist. I'd like to be a part of one. If anyone in my audience is involved in a criminal heist crew, reach out.
What sort of work do you do, crime-wise?
And 2, sci-fi heist, even cooler, more badass, but we're then seeing rockets and space travel, so I'm so many layers of interested and down to check this one out. And when it comes to the actual art of the cover by Jordan Wolfe, I gotta say, I actually kind of like this style. It is more of like a minimalist, not depicting a scene or something like that, but it does what it's trying to do in terms of evoking like luxury and space quite well, and I think the color choices as well are fantastic. So I'm assuming, not knowing for sure, this is going to be about a heist in space from like ship to ship possibly, of a crew taking on like maybe a casino that's interstellar. No idea. Regardless, nice subgenre crossover. Why is it that the more I look at this cover, I like it? I don't know if it's like the subtle hinting at like a solar system-esque series of shapes in these half circles. Maybe it's the cultural influence coming in from the designs leading into this diamond in the center. I kind of like the half moon coming up and encircling this rocket, taking off into the stars. It manages to tell quite a story while remaining so abstract. I appreciate this one a lot. But that's going to take us to our next cover reveal, which I know fans of The Expanse are going to be ecstatic for, because this is the new series by author duo writing under the pen name James S.A. Corey for a Captives War novella, Livesuit. Set to be released October of 2024 with design by @PlanetPinto. This is the first novella to take place within the Captives War series. And before we get into the cover, it does say author of the Expanse series, which for the pen name, correct, but it is authors of the Expanse series. And I guess this is the better way to package it, because most people won't know that, but it's also wrong, because now it's making me imagine them actually like Vegeta Goku fuse into one individual for when they write. Which, hey, for all I know, possibly they do. The universe is a crazy place. But when it comes to the actual cover, we have seen a dark silhouetted figure standing on an dry, desolate planetary surface with a, let's call it, unrealistically close planet in the background. At least I don't think. I mean, they could be on a moon, and I guess the planet could be that big. No, the planet couldn't be that big. Like, because look at like Earth from the moon. A moon that close, wouldn't it just sink in? I'm not an astrophysicist, though I think this is a very impactful cover. The consistent cool tones kind of bring in that cold feeling of space. I like that there looks to be some kind of like atmosphere or fog in the background, and seeing a shadowy figure on a desolate planetary surface like this immediately starts bringing in those oh so infamous alien vibes of, oh no, just because this looks empty, is it really? I will say it does look like the barrel of his gun has a silencer, which I'm sure that's not the case, and this is just a space rifle that needs something that looks like a silencer for a different purpose. Though I guess there could be enough atmosphere for sound to travel. It's just an odd idea to be like, oh, we're gonna be fighting aliens on this planet. Shh. But for this next cover reveal, I declare victory, because in the last episode of Fantasy News, I let the Broken Binding know, hey, you don't gotta release these images as one stacked on top of each other uneven. You could do two separate ones side by side. How about that? And for the next cover reveal in the Sun Eater series, they have done just that. And I think this is an even stronger showcasing than the last covers they revealed. Super well done. And again, I really love this reversible concept. Also Broken Binding. I hope you know I wasn't angry. It's a character I put on. I hope I don't offend anybody. On top of that, though, from the bottom of my heart, I'm proud of you for accepting change. But this is going to take us to possibly the biggest book news of the week. Not possibly, most definitely. And that is going to be, we have finally gotten a major Gentleman Bastards update from the author Scott Lynch himself, where he has said, "Greetings from the World Science Fiction Convention in Glasgow, Scotland. My wife and I are here from August 8th to 12th, and there are a few exciting things I wanted to update or reveal, because it's more fun to do this sort of thing when you've got a little bit of big convention hype to work with. So with no further ado, here's a lot of fresh information about a couple of projects. The Road to Emberlane novellas More Than Fools Fill Graves, The Road to Emberlane Book 1, forthcoming from Subterranean Press. The Road to Emberlane is a linked sequence of 3 novels bridging the events of the Republic of Thieves and the Thorn of Emberlane, detailing the year Locke and Jean spend crossing the continent and developing the scheme that will bring them to Emberlane. In its time of war, absolutely nothing in these novellas will be essential to the readers of Thorn of Emberlane. No critical plot information will be withheld. However, I hope readers will find these shorter works a pleasant expansion and a deeper exploration of the background story. And to be completely fair for Scott Lynch, and I think this is great, he does clarify that there have been a few announced novellas for the Gentleman Bastard sequence in the past that have been abandoned, but these ones are completed and for sure happening and set to be released by Subterranean Press. Each one does clock in around 40,000 words, and on top of all of this, there's going to be a new Gentleman Bastard short story released in Grim Dark magazine, where Scott Lynch said, Locke Lamora and the Bottled Serpent will be a 2-part extravaganza, bridging the October 2024 and January 2025 issues of Grim Dark magazine. In this tale from Locke's teenage years, our nervous, hormonal, romantically confused hero spends a few months working as a barback in one of the Comor's most brutal, Right People taverns. This is one of Father Chain's endless series of training and personal enrichment schemes. As per usual, it's full of f***ery, and as per usual, Locke is expected to work it all out himself. His only real ally of the moment is the aging mercenary Malzak Saba, a man addicted to risking his own life in a gambling spectacle involving poisoned wine. I somehow forgot to mention the 3 names of the novellas that are actually being released in this sequence. They are More Than Fools Fill Graves, The Mad Baron's Mechanical Attic, and The Choir of Knives. Speaking of the Hugo Awards though, they have come to a conclusion over in Glasgow, and it is time to announce the winners that they've actually been following through on their promises and very transparent with everything to make up for last year. So while there is still big unanswered questions there and serious harm to a reputation, it's nice to see these ceremonies so far go off without any rather large hitches. But of course, now let's go ahead and get into those winners.
And the winner for Best Novel is Some Desperate Glory by Emily Tesh. The winner for Best Novella is Thornhedge by T. Kingfisher. The winner for Best Novelette is The Year Without Sunshine by Naomi Kritzer. And the winner for Best Short Story is Better Living Through Algorithms by Naomi Kritzer. And the winner for Best Series is Imperial Ratch by Anne Leckie. The winner for Best Graphic Story or Comic is Saga, Volume 11. The Best Related Work winner is A City on Mars by Kelly Weinersmith and Zach Weinersmith. The Best Dramatic Presentation, long form, is Dungeons & Dragons, Honor Among Thieves. The Best Dramatic Presentation, short form, winner is The Last of Us, Long, Long Time. The Best Game or Interactive Work is Baldur's Gate 3.
And a big shout out to George R.R. Martin in all of this for actually going above and beyond for everyone who was unethically, let's call it, censored from the Hugo Awards last year and giving awards to those authors called the Alfie, which included Jiren J. Zhao and Rebecca Kwong. Mad respect. That is not something he had to do, and I think it goes a long way. There is actually some One Piece news I would like to get into from here, because Oda has come out now that we have seen some first fresh images for the new animation being done for the series, and specifically said that he just wants the new One Piece anime to faithfully adapt the manga. But he also wants it to go a bit beyond that and seems to express an understanding that changing mediums means that a faithful adaptation does involve some interpretation, saying specifically, I want you all to express rather than copy and paste the work. With the director of the new animation going on to say, I feel the strength of the project and team is how people who felt excitement, who know the passion for a particular comic frame, and who've enjoyed reading are all assembled as a team. They grew up watching One Piece at a young age, and now working in this project still have the joy and excitement as a reader. They have a strong sense of what they felt when they were young because they were the target audience experience back then. And yes, One Piece has been generationally around long enough for that to absolutely be the case. I don't have super strong opinions on this new upcoming One Piece animation yet, aside from the fact that I do hope they take advantage of the currently existing room to improve from the ongoing One Piece anime. Don't get me wrong, I think that anime is good. There's just a reason things like One Piece, that does have its own issues as well, do exist. They were constantly trying to play catch up, then slow down, and that has drastically affected the episode-to-episode experience of One Piece. And with the final arc ongoing, hopefully, no guarantee, this new anime will not run into that same problem and will be able to do just as good an adaptation as possible for this series now that the greater story is mostly unveiled. It's just rather scary to still have to say those things, though I'm sure-ish that by the time they do catch up to the manga, it will be done. Right?
I pretty much forgot to say, and I will say now, I think the art style we're seeing in this concept art is fantastic. I think these soft colors could be beautiful in motion. The manga almost appeal to it can definitely plant the idea in your head that this is going to be a truer manga adaptation. That being said, though, it's not in motion, and animation can look crazy different depending on a ton of different factors if it's in motion, so I will hold judgment until I see it move.
But speaking of animation news, we've gotten some rather upsetting updates from Netflix. You probably have heard by now that there has been a massive leak, one of the worst a streamer has ever suffered. That is right, Netflix has had episodes of its upcoming releases for Terminator Zero and Dan Da Dan leak online, as well as the movie for Mononoke, Phantom in the Rain, a first installment in a planned trilogy of films. But possibly most devastating at all for an established franchise, 5 episodes of the next season of Arcane have leaked online. The only silver lining being they are apparently very low quality. I have not bothered to look, and I will not. And it just sucks. I don't mean to go on too much of a rant tangent here, but we love this franchise. It's a smash hit and is not something that is just being quickly cranked out. Season 2 has taken years of effort from the studio to carefully craft and put together. I really hope any possible inflicted damage to the numbers is understood by the studio, though I don't think the damage is gonna be too big because I've seen pretty aggressive smothering of these leaks spreading online from nearly all communities. And I don't think it's some big come together for big streamer daddy Netflix, but instead fans coming together and understanding that they want to experience this together on release. And finally, the alignment of desires from a streamer to the audience are together. They don't wanna watch a quality, maybe not polished and finished first 5 episodes of Arcane, and instead, I think everyone who's watching this video can agree, we'd rather experience those as a community together, discuss them, be shocked, awed, wow, possibly even disappointed, but at least do it as it's intended to be presented. And can we all just come together and agree, like, fuck leakers, right? No one wants a shot at a streamer taken in this way, because this is a way to try to take a hit at a streamer that directly affects the art. But all right, let's go ahead and get into some exciting video game news. The biggest of which is going to be that Witcher 4 has announced, yes, it is still happening. This is going to be brought to us, but Geralt won't be the main character. And this is known because Doug Cockle, the voice for Geralt in the games, has come forward and said that he will be returning as a voice actor in The Witcher 4, but he won't be the main character this time around.
Witcher 4 has been announced. I can't say anything about it. What we know is that Geralt will be part of the game. We just don't know how much, and the game won't focus on Geralt, so it's not about him this time. We don't know who it's about.
Hasn't officially received a script from CD Projekt Red, the studio behind the Witcher games, so it does seem he's unsure just how substantial his role will be, but I'm sure contractually he's sure he won't be the main character, because that, affects things like pay. And I think there should be a 4th entry, especially with CD Projekt Red being so consistently outstanding at making them. There's a chance, though, that 4 games in, it could begin to feel a bit stale, at least narratively. So the idea of possibly focusing the 4th game on a new character, possibly Ciri, or who else knows what they could do with the flexibility they have with changing and shifting the canon of the Witcher books, is kind of exciting. I'm down for it and just hope there are stretches where you get to play as a fully powered up Geralt. And for me personally, this actually manages to duck one of my least favorite things that happens in gaming, where in, game 3, you maximally power up your guy, make him super armored and perfect, and then in the next game, suddenly he's back to like rags and a bad sword. For whatever reason, this kind of gets rid of that mild frustration that always bugged me in the Mass Effect games. Speaking of games, though, for those of you who like miniatures, figurines, not what you're thinking, Game Workshop's Lord of the Rings miniature games will get models from the new movie, War of the Rohirrim. Best known for their Warhammer 40k figurines, Game Workshop since 2001 has also been putting out Lord of the Rings miniatures, largely based on Peter Jackson's movie trilogy. And yes, the Hobbit movies as well. But while most of the details are still being kept from the public, they have announced that for War of the Rohirrim, they will be using that animated feature that is going to be the first major release animation for Lord of the Rings in the modern era to make new miniatures as well. And as someone who has never really gotten much into a game that uses miniatures, but always appreciated them from like, I don't know, I just think they're neat.
What do you want it for anyway? Because they're neat.
I'm happy to see this. God, is Lord of the Rings going to be my entry into actually playing Warhammer 40k somehow? Possibly. I just really feel bad for my wallet about it. But speaking of Lord of the Rings, comments from Cate Blanchett made headlines in regards to her role as Galadriel in the original Lord of the Rings trilogy. Specifically, she said, "No one got paid anything to film Lord of the Rings. I basically got free sandwiches." With the greater context being, when asked by Andy Cohen which film she received the biggest paycheck for, he guessed it would be The Lord of the Rings, to which Cate Blanchett replied, "Are you kidding me? No one got paid anything to do that movie. And no one got any piece of the back end." Then going on to say that she just wanted to work with Peter Jackson, the guy who made Brain Dead.
I'm not dead yet. Because you're not dead.
Don't let them take you into surgery.
Until you're brain dead.
Which is just a nice firm reminder that the Lord of the Rings trilogy was truly an anomaly in so many ways in terms of not only its success, but production, because reminder, Peter Jackson was just the weird horror director before he took those on and was able to find mainstream success. But yeah, many of the actors who even signed on to do it were there for reasons related to passion. Cate Blanchett says here she wanted to work with Peter Jackson because she liked his weird horror films. A lot of the actors signed on with not huge paychecks because they were just massive Lord of the Rings fans. Same thing with Peter Jackson. But despite the films together grossing roughly $2.9 billion, previously Orlando Bloom has stated he only received $175,000 for all 3 movies, which yes is not nothing, but it's certainly less than you'd expect. But okay, let's go ahead and wrap up the news here with 2 quickie stories before we get into one gosh darn it story. And the first quickie story is going to be, apparently the 9 Inch Nails are set to score Disney's Tron Ares. The project with Jared Leto attached, directed by Joachim Ronning. Little is known about this next installment in the Tron franchise, but seeing 9 Inch Nails step in to try and follow up Daft Punk's legacy of making one of the most well-received film scores for a film that was not necessarily a box office smash hit, is...
Good luck, darling.
But for this next piece of quickie news, I want to just put this on people's radar in case they're interested, because I'm a big fan of retro style games being made with peak modern technology to just reach levels of polish previously thought impossible, and we're seeing that seemingly with this new release from Radical Fish Games for Alabaster Dawn, which seems to be in the style of so many games from our childhood, top-down bit-ish art scrolling through combat, but done as well as it can be done now. Described as, Alabaster Dawn is an action RPG that builds on the best aspects of Radical Fish Games' previous titles, Crosscode. It features a deep combat system, challenging puzzles, and a mysterious world teeming with secrets, all bundled up in an engaging story. The shadow of the Nyx has fallen, wrapping the world into a wasteland and vanishing the gods and their people. Now, Juno, the outcast chosen, awakens to an impossible task: bring it all back. So it does seem certainly in that vein of a Zelda entry, and that is not a bad thing. This brings us to our final story of the day though, which is just God!
Christ, Red, this is dumb, man. This is dumb.
And that is that Utah is set to outlaw books by Judy Blume and Sarah J. Maas in a statewide ban. The state has ordered 13 books, with the wider context being beyond the headline. The state has set 13 books by 7 authors, 6 of the women to be removed from every public school classroom and library. This includes book by Margaret Atwood, Judy Blume,
Rupee Core?
and Sarah J. Maas. And this marks the first time a state has outlawed a list of books statewide, according to PEN America's Jonathan Friedman. And this is a part of a new law that requires Utah to remove books if they are banned in either 3 districts or 2 school districts and 5 charter schools. Meanwhile, Utah has 41 public school districts, so the most radical districts can have a disproportional impact on the rest. Wonderful! And I would just like to say,
in the modern era of literature, where children have iPads and phones in front of them all the time, maybe instead of trying to ban books in public schools, you can actually have a conversation with your children and parent them. That, by chance, could do less damage than getting in the habit of book banning.
But don't blame me when little Eric jumps off of the terrace. You should have been watching him. Apparently, you ain't parents.
but quick, today's Indie Pub promo from a book written by one of the members of the Goblin Horde. If you would like to submit your book to possibly be promoted here for free on the channel, all you gotta do is join the Discord server and put all the details in the Self-Pub promo channel. And while you're there, put any fantasy news stories you'd like to see me cover in the fantasy news channel.
And today's Indie Pub promo is Small Town Problems, a sci-fi novella by Chris Ritchie, pitched as the first book in a 3-part series that explores the impact a lone survivor from an advanced alien civilization can have on a sleepy farm town in the middle of Oklahoma. Comfortable in his simple, rural life, widower Robert Potter never put much stock in old Jim's moonshine-fueled conspiracy theories. But after he finds Harlday, the lone survivor of a crashed spaceship, he begins to wonder if the Loch Ness Monster has relocated to Eufaula Lake. Much to Robert's dismay, the wandering eye of the federal government is casting a questioning gaze on his small farm town as well. Caught between relentless federal agents and the found family harboring him, Harlday's freedom depends on the ingenuity of his new friends. Check it out in the links down below!
But this has been your latest episode of Fantasy News. You cannot prevent people from reading things by just trying to remove it from public libraries and schools because, you know, we're in the information age and digital stuff exists. And like and subscribe if you have not already. Hit the Patreon if you'd like to support what I do here, and have a good one, y'all. Check out our Between Two Perns with Terry Brooks later this week. Hells yes. Peace.